The philosopher Isaiah Berlin said, "There is no fixed and unchanging truth." Our globalist era, deemed
Mm.
post-capitalist, requires collaboration between multiple concepts and beliefs, some of which will oppose each other mutually. This does not mean they are not part of an interlocking whole. Ralph Waldo Emerson stated in his essay "The Conservative," "Our experience, our perception, is conditioned by the need to acquire in parts and in succession, that is, with every truth a certain falsehood. Consistent exposure to different views improves the understanding of them as well as their inherent faults. However, the media must pledge itself to independent facts rather than views per se." Walter Cronkite, a popular journalist, said in an interview, "I think being a liberal, in the true sense, is being non-doctrinaire, non-dogmatic, non-committed to a cause, but examining each case on its merits. The goal of journalism is to present views, not determine them. And as I read stories from Reuters, various positions are discussed and granted a voice. There is a lot of discussion of fake news, such has become the rallying point of authoritarians worldwide. Examples are not limited to former President Donald Trump. Also, Slovakia's president or prime minister, Fico, attacked the country's media, calling it anti-government and quote-unquote co-owners of George Soros's financial structure, following an assassination attempt on him that nearly killed him. The media must not take sides. We must allow the involved parties their respective voices, just the facts. David Borstein, co-founder of Solutions Journalism Network, says, "If we don't tell the whole story about communities, we are creating bias in the minds of people who often have power over those communities. Journalism can be very empowering. Truth is not specialized or elitist by nature. It is a power for the benefit of the whole." Nigerian journalist Ona Meyer says, "I have the result. The way text leaves the page and causes a change in society makes everything worth it. I like the fact that journalism keeps changing. The public wants the truth without the politics and corporate bias. In the USA, 6 companies own 90% of the media. The Telecommunications Act of 1996's agenda, according to the FCC, is to let anyone enter into communications business, to let the communications business compete in any market against any other. However, in 1983, 50 companies had owned 90% of the U.S. media. Independent journalists and the internet age provide a counterbalance to the mainstream corporate hegemony. Sarah Fisher for Axios titles an article, "Student Journalists Are Breaking Big Stories." These types of stories reveal political corruption, bias, and attempts to empower the populace across the world. That is, they keep people informed. Salman Rushdie writes, "A poet's work is to name the unnameable, to point at frauds, to take sides, start arguments, shape the world, and stop it from going to sleep." According to Statistica.com, the global literacy rate has grown from 67% in 1976 to 87% in 2022. Why is media literacy important? In the interconnected world we inhabit today, it is important to be aware of the types of messages you receive and give. Global culture requires interactions and proper distribution of powers to encourage fair and balanced information and cultural exchanges. Societies today are polarizing in a toxic manner as they become more complex. Dr. Peter Coleman says politicians are often constrained by these polarizations and cannot do much about them, but those of us who are not constrained can. He says it is good to have people who are impassioned and informed on different sides of an issue, challenging each other to try to find a third way. He says moral differences between Americans, the loneliness epidemic, and other factors are driving the polarities in this country. An increasing number of Americans feel certain political violence. I believe this problem is international and not strictly American. Dr. Coleman describes it as a biosocial structural problem. Media is about communications. and therefore has the power to bridge these divides. Although most people prefer confirmation bias to the challenges of their assumptions, the media can create platforms where varying perspectives are heard and resonate. Media must be inclusive and truthful to maintain the trust of the citizen. A 2020 paper entitled "Is Trust in the Media Decreasing? Evidence from World Surveys" by Anton Shirokov states, scholars and observers are increasingly concerned that trust in the mainstream media is decreasing, which could undermine the democratic political process and make citizens more vulnerable to manipulation. An informed populace is necessary for the democratic process to function properly. What can the media do to maintain standards of efficacy and trust so that authoritarians hold less of the popular imagination? The presence of a free press is the breath of a country. Integrity means holding to the values that invite good conduct and honesty. When it comes to communications, integrity requires balance and discernment. To reveal the truth to a readership, one must uncover it for oneself. Knowledge of human nature is indispensable. Learning to decipher a crook, power hunger, lies, and greed requires the inevitable test of character. The free exchange of information is a human right, unlike others. It determines the character of a people, the strength of a nation, the trust it has in its own citizens, and helps maintain the balance of power by securing our institutions and their development.